When did you realize you married the wrong sibling? I had been married to my Annie for 6 years. We met during our last years in college and hit it off almost immediately. She was your typical blonde college girl, fun, wild, hot, and very social. I was just an international student from Europe who around the time was used to dull and introverted women all my life and felt very lucky to meet her and coincidentally after graduation, marry her. We moved to Miami because she wanted to live by the coast and wanted a house there. I obliged. Annie was a housewife, for her request, and I really didn't mind. As a lawyer, I earned more than enough to support the family on my own. I let Annie have whatever she wanted and at any amount she pleased. We had 2 children during our 6 years of marriage, and despite my working life, I contributed largely to their upbringing. She had a more social life than I did, but it was fine by me. All in all, we were all right. Everything was all right. That was what I thought. Things began to change when my wife began to get obsessed with her phone. Annie was always on her phone normally. I think she had an active social media life as well, posting videos and all that, but it began to be too much. She would just sit at a corner for hours on her phone, texting. I knew she was texting because I once caught a glance of it. I didn't know who she was texting, but I just knew it was always the same person. I didn't want to think much of it at first, but she began to act suspicious. She would start leaving the room when she wanted to take calls, and she put a password on all her devices and would always place her phone down when she charged in. When I made the mistake of confronting her about it, she went all out on me and accused me of getting in her privacy, of wanting to control her and picking on everything she does. I apologized and left her alone. My suspicion still stood, but I didn't have anyone to talk to and I was getting worried with every passing time. I've heard stories relating to what was happening and I wish that I was going to be wrong. A few days later, Annie's sister Marie came to visit. Annie and Marie were fraternal twins but did share similar traits for you to clearly tell that they were sisters. Though they were twins, they were very different, and sometimes I wonder if my life would have been better had I met Marie first. Marie was calm and mature, and she was as beautiful as her sister, and she was every other thing that Annie wasn't. She wasn't in a relationship from what I know and was focusing on her career, which was growing a skincare brand. It was because I knew her to be just an understanding that I thought about discussing her sister's behavior with her. I only held back when I remembered that all in all, Marie and Annie were sisters, and as such, there is a huge chance that this would make things worse for me. However, I did not need to contemplate anymore because at the end of the day it was Marie who called me to talk about her sister. We had all been sitting at the dining room table drinking wine and eating pizza while playing a board game when Annie got a notification for a text, and from then on, she became distracted. Marie would call her back to the game every now and then. Annie got a call and stood up immediately to answer it, and I could tell that Marie was confused at her behavior because a few minutes later, when my wife did not return, Marie went to meet her and I sat alone till she came back. The first thing she asked was, "Has she always been like this? On the phone 24/7 and acting distracted and suspicious?" It was the opening I was looking for, and I told Marie everything. She didn't judge me and told me that I should look into it. She even told me whatever happened I should understand that Annie was always foolish and immature and I should always be the bigger and forgiving person. I understood what Marie was saying. If I found out that my wife was cheating on me, I should have it in me to forgive. I knew that Marie tried to talk to Annie, and I also knew that my wife did not listen. That was probably why Marie told me she would be coming off and to check on the children, and I was grateful. It was stressful doing it alone nowadays. I continued to live in doubt for weeks until one night luck shined on my side. After coming home one night from a party with her girlfriends, Annie was very drunk and half asleep as she walked into the house and threw herself on the bed. As she did, her purse fell on the floor, and as I went to pick it up, her phone slipped out and I saw that it was unlocked. This was my chance, and you can be sure that I took it. I went through her phone and what I found broke me. Annie was cheating, yes, but she was also making a fool out of me. The person she was cheating with was a man named Tim, someone she had met on social media, and from what I read, someone she had seen a number of times. Annie's messages to this man were not only about their affair but about me because the man knew. My wife made fun of me with her lover, calling me all sorts of things, laughing at my insecurities and my deepest secrets that I entrusted to her. Annie called me a fool, mocked my love for her, and used me. I read every single message between them and listened to the voice notes too. When I was done, I sent them to my phone, dropped hers and went to sit on the couch, in the darkness and in tears. I never imagined I would feel a pain as intense as this. I felt open, I felt naked, and I felt used. What was it exactly that caused this? I gave her everything she needed, I treated her like a queen, I did whatever she asked and compromised so that she could be comfortable. I loved her to bits, and she did this to me? I didn't know when I picked up the phone and called Marie. It was a good thing that Annie was dead-ass drunk, or she would have heard my sobs and words. Marie didn't say much. She listened to me and consoled me, telling me it would be okay. After an hour, I decided I was better. I took a shower and slept on the couch. The next day, when Annie asked why she didn't wake up to see me on the bed next to her, I gave her the excuse that I didn't want to disturb her. Later that afternoon, when she left for the mall, I took the kids with me to see Marie, and while they played with her dog, we talked and I showed her the messages I transferred to my phone. Marie was shocked and so embarrassed that she began to cry. She told me how sorry she was that all this was happening, and I began to tell her it's not her fault. She began to say that maybe it was a mistake. I haven't exactly caught Annie red-handed. I knew she was really concerned for her sister if I divorced her. She knew how I treated Annie and how Annie was about to lose it all. I told Marie to help me look after the children once in a while and I would look for proof. I also made Marie promise me that she would not tell Annie anything. I did just that. I would wait for Annie to leave her phone and then I connected it to mine so I got all her messages. The day she told me she would have a get-together with her girlfriends in the suburbs for 3 days, I agreed. I had already let go of any feelings for Annie at this point. She was a bad wife and an unfit mother who was never there with the kids. I knew the girlfriend's tale was a lie. She was going to meet with the Tim guy. I had asked Marie beforehand to help me get in contact with the man's wife after she said she saw his profile on Facebook. I texted the wife and we met up that day and I told and showed her everything. She said she already suspected it but had no proof. She said Tim told her he had to travel for business and would be back after 3 days. Ironic. After 2 days, when Annie was supposed to return the next day and after I found out the location of Annie and Tim, I dropped the kids off with Marie's mother and hopped in my car with Marie and Tim's wife, driving to the hotel where my wife and the bastard were. It wasn't very hard to bribe the receptionist after explaining our ordeal and get the key to the room. We all went to the door, Marie shaking, Tim's wife on the verge of tears and me. I felt nothing but disgust and seething anger. We walked in on them in the act and armed with my phone ready, I snapped away before they could cover themselves. Annie began to beg. Marie walked up to her and slapped her while crying. Why would you do this? You had everything. Look at what you've done to yourself and your kids. I left immediately with Marie, letting Tim's wife hit and yell at her unfaithful husband as she threatened divorce. I didn't bother to talk to Tim or Annie who begged me. I just left. We drove in silence till I got to my house. That's when I let it all out for the last time, screaming and crying in pain as Marie calmed me down. Once I was calm and with Marie watching, I sent the pictures and the chats to her mother and the contacts of the family members I knew. I also posted it on the timeline of every single page she had. Marie apologized as though it was her fault, the innocent woman crying over her foolish sister. I didn't leave the house even as Marie went to bring the kids back. Annie didn't come home either and there were a lot of messages on my phone from her family but I ignored it. That night, Marie and I slept together. No, we didn't actually hook up, but we fell asleep on the couch together after putting the kids to bed. There was no reason to and no thoughts about it but it was calming. The next day I contacted my lawyer to prepare the divorce papers. I had Annie's things moved to her parents' house. That afternoon she came begging and crying on her knees, blaming the devil, lust, Tim, anything but her. I threatened to call the police if she didn't leave. She didn't, she stayed there till evening when her parents came and used that opportunity to get in the house. They apologized on her behalf as well, but it wasn't their fault. They understood my decision to leave her and begged that they be able to see their grandchildren when everything was over. They were very disappointed in Annie, everyone was. When Annie saw Marie in the house, she began to say it was all her sister's plan from the beginning. That Marie wanted to take me away from her. That was the second time Marie slapped her, telling her if she had been a fit mother she wouldn't have to be here and her marriage to me would have been fine but Annie chose to mess around. I threw her out of my house eventually. I didn't care where she went. The divorce happened and like the court ordered, I split everything in half and gave half to her. I moved with Marie for a while as per her request as I searched for a house, possibly in another state. Thankfully the kids did not miss a mother that was never there. They were too young anyway, they felt better being with their Aunt Marie. Things settled after a few months and I was on my feet again, mentally. I didn't care where or what Annie did and I haven't seen her since but the times I did, she would burst into tears begging me. Marie, like I said, was an amazing woman and just what I needed in my life. She brought me peace and healed me and after 2 years we were together, then engaged and about to get married. She has been the best thing that has ever happened to me. Even though I was in an insane amount of time, I can't help but look back on what happened as a good thing, because I would never meet the actual true love of my life. I love you, Marie.